Welcome back to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. This is the podcast that features me, Jana Stern, psychic activator, energy healer, and astrologer, as I delve into deep conversations with different folks in the holistic and conscious industries about the many beliefs and practices of spirituality, mental health, and what it means to be a human who's into that stuff in the 2020s and beyond. I'm Really Into That Stuff is excited to tell you that we have won one of the top 10 Esoterica podcast spots on feedspot.com. Check out the whole list at blog.feedspot.com/esoterica_podcasts for the whole list. Thanks to our friends at Feedspot for this incredible honor. Hello and welcome back to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. I am joined by the effervescent, that really is the best word for you, Séverine Baron. You are so magical. You're an energy worker, an AI artist, and a writer. I would love for you to give people a little bit more of an intro and share with my listeners how you got into that stuff.
So, do you know the devices when you need to reboot them? This is pretty much what I do, but for the energy and the emotions, the unprocessed emotion. So, like my kid,
cool.
Yeah, that's what my kids call me, the subconscious emotion app store. I don't remember. Anyway, they also call me the subconscious bouncer. You know,
That's amazing.
I know how kids come up with those, like, to make fun of you, but then you're like, ooh, I like that. I want to use
Using it for my branding, and I'm not even going to credit you.
Exactly. No, your family, I made you. So I do that. That's my main practice. Energy. So I do energy work to connect to the subconscious, to connect to unprocessed emotions, limiting beliefs, and all such things that prevent you from living your best lives. I do this through energy healing techniques. And I also use some of my background as a functional medicine naturopath, because you know how sometimes there's not just unprocessed emotions, and we're a holistic being. We're not just the emotions that we haven't processed. We're not just the physical symptoms that we had. So weaving those two together is really magical, actually. That's what I do currently. The AI art came from my immersion in the Web3 world, and you pushed me, right? Last year, I was like, yeah, I do visual art, just like the hobby. And you're like, you gotta create it now. Now's the time. And I was like, oh, I like when you kick me in the butt.
I once had a client tell me that a reading with me is like getting a loving smackdown.
Like, my kids, they just gave you your tagline. It filters the people that come to you. They're ready to get your session. It's like, okay, that's fine. Totally. That's it.
Share with me a little bit about how you came onto this path and, started out, and how you got from there to where you are today.
So my mother was a witch. I used to call her the witch because, she was a psychogenealogist, but she also was interested in karmic numerology. She did tarot. And so when I was 7, 9, I already had my pendulum and my tarot cards and all that. And I'm sure you can relate. So already, it's like set up for it. But I was a musician. I was a professional musician for a long time, even as a child, which was mystical in itself, but that's a whole other thing. So when I went to college for music, I also, in parallel, went for natural health in general. So I did Chinese medicine and I started naturopathy. But what interested me was a lot more mystical. And so I got into Reiki. Like most of us, I think we start with Reiki, right? It's a great trampoline.
Sure.
And, when I got certified in Reiki, it opened up some doors, some energetic doors that I think were essential. So after that, while continuing all the natural physical health studies, like functional medicine, I did the reconnection, I did Chinese energy healing, Qigong. I did a lot of auricular therapy, all choreo, like the hand acupuncture, things like that. So just the whole gamut of energy work. That was 25 years ago. And then I continued. I started seeing clients little by little. Then I had kids, and then I moved, because I move every 5 seconds, and so life takes place, but I just kept on going, and I keep learning, because I'm also addicted to certification. So I have like this list long of certified certifications and degrees and such that you can get into. But I got into also my last degree was in 2018 where I did a quantum biology, which ties it all together, right? The physical and the energetic work.
Cool. I feel like you bring such a unique perspective on what holistic actually means, because it's very easy. I mean, when we live in this world of self-improvement, holistic gets used as this sort of blanket for health conscious, but we've lost the meaning that it really does mean all of the things all at once, And so I feel like that's very fascinating that that's such a big part of what you bring as an energy healer.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, because that's exactly it. Like, that's something that definitely drove me for all this, because I think that when you're raised with a mother like mine, you're in touch with your intuition very early. And my intuition led me to this. And so every time I was too deep in energy work, like only Reiki or other, I'd be like, wait, but I'm missing an element. And that's when I would go back to school, And whether it was energy medicine or Chinese medicine or Ayurveda, it was always sort of what they call alternative medicine. I hate that word because to me it's traditional medicine instead of conventional medicine, but a whole other subject as well. Oh yeah.
The writer in you is coming out being like the language. Share with me a little bit about what it is that really keeps you inspired to keep learning, because I think the process of working with energy, I should say, is something that is very expansive, but a lot of us tend to sort of stick our haunches in or grind our heels in and be like, this is what I do. So I'm curious what it is that drives you in that.
Okay, let's be honest. It might be a mix of not feeling good enough ever, feeling completely insecure or inadequate.
Good old insecurity.
I mean, I think we're all driven by that somewhere. And so it's a mix of that and humility as well, right? I do believe that I don't know, and nobody knows anything. And so what if somebody came up with a unique technique in the last 2 years and I want to know it? If I didn't know it, I don't even know if I can apply it. I'm not going to take the arrogant route and say like, I'm going to learn it so that I can only make money from it and only use it in my business. I'm just genuinely curious. And I think that goes with truly believing that you don't know nothing.
Yeah, I think the idea that we know nothing is an incredibly imperative part of being an energy practitioner, because it's very easy to get stuck in the ego and to think, I'm going to do this for you, when nobody does anything for anybody, really. You do it for yourself, and you believe in the person in front of you who says, oh, I'm going to do this for you. And you're like, you what? Thank you. Right? And then you're in that hook. I've taken your program. And by the way, are there still NFTs available as of this date?
So they're still in the collection of NFTs that is tied to one of the programs that I have, which is the 21 Days of Kind Self-Talk Challenge. I think there's like 8 in that collection, which is the cosmic activation uses.
Cool. Yeah. It was fascinating for me, the process, because I felt that I was learning things about my subconscious, and I've done a shit ton of shadow work and whatever work on myself, but I really would love for you to speak a little bit more about the subconscious connection and kind of how you unpack that for folks.
It depends on the context. If I'm, with you one-on-one, it'll be different than than the videos that you might watch in the program, for example, which is addressed more to the group, right? That being said, synchronicity is very real. And so if you sign up for the program, you're going to get the energetic work that was provided in this, right? But as you said, I don't believe I'm a guru. I really don't like that. And I don't think that I'm providing energy. I think that I'm just an enabler of you connecting from point A to point B or several points, because different realities, different dimensions. And I could go so made up on the esotericism behind it, right?
Please feel free if you want to. I'd love to go there.
So in that aspect, in the group aspect, and what I did in that program is that I have this weird, I guess, the ability, that sounds guru-ish as well, but I can connect to your subconscious. I can know, I'm not going to know exactly what your secret is or what you don't. It's not like, oh, she knows what I'm thinking right now. No, it's not like that. It's just that I can tell what's needed right now at the moment that you're asking for something. So one-on-one, I'll be connecting. I have lists that I connect and emotions and physical body and chakras, meridian, like all of that. So I can ask your subconscious directly. I don't know how to say it in words totally, because it's an energetic connection. It's like two magnets. You present yourself as a magnet and you're open to being connected to, and I'm the other magnet and I'm just able to go click. And this is where you're open and you tell me your book is open and I can see where that blocks. So in the group setting, it's the same thing in that I'm connecting to a collective consciousness, really. And there, that's why I'm saying if you come to these videos at a specific time, that's because you need them now. And they are super simple, right? Like they're 15 seconds to a minute or whatever, and I'm doing a lot of gestures. But that's because the way I connect is very mental in a way, because it's all in my head. But there's, with the Reiki and all the hands-on energy work that I've done, I know that there's something concrete that happens with your perception when I go like this, or I go like this. And because you're having that concrete connection, then you're the one who's doing either release, transmuting, whatever needs to happen, really, that's your work, right? So like, oh my God, I think I went somewhere completely.
Yeah, no, you went somewhere great. Yeah, I think what they're showing me as you're speaking is like, you can find the needle in the haystack. And so once you've looked at where the needle is in that haystack and you've removed it, suddenly you're relating to the haystack a lot differently because you're not anticipating the needle, right?
That's it. It's part of that. Yeah, absolutely. It can be very disruptive. Even if you're ready and you come to see me, you had this needle there. It was part of you. And you remove it. I prefer to think of it, I do say release and delete and all that, but I prefer to think of it as a transmutation, because energy doesn't, right? As we know, energy doesn't disappear, doesn't,
back to its wave from its particleness.
That's it.
Yeah.
So you're making space for something else, or you're transmuting that energy into something else. Most of the time what happens is that it is transmuting into something else. If I remove hatred, then, self-love is probably going to transmute right away. But sometimes you remove something and it's just empty space. And then people are like, whoa, your whole pattern, your whole physical body, your energetic body, they're like, whoa, you got to find a new pattern. So it might bring on, some detox symptoms, which is good.
Can you give an example of a detox symptom?
Well, you could get like graphic. I have people who get either just nauseous or full on, like they'll throw up. I have some people in my family, they actually have like digestive symptoms, like, diarrhea or constipation. But constipation is generally the opposite. It's like, okay, did you really let it go? But
what are you holding on to here?
What are you holding on? Oh, maybe you're holding on for a couple more days until you're like ready, and then it goes, That's the thing about the session. You'll do a session and you'll be like, really, it's only a half hour? Oh my God, you're doing so much work, because you're going to continue working afterwards for like a week and you don't even know it.
Right. It's all in the integration, right?
Yeah. So there will be symptoms like that. Yeah.
And maybe you can give me an idea or an understanding about some of the transformations that you've seen in your clients, because I know that every time I've even just like, sat with my girlfriend and chatted with you,
yeah,
something alchemizes, something shifts. I imagine that in a session, things really shift.
Yeah, some things can really, really shift. And maybe it'll shift on your first session like a lot, and then your second session, you'll be like, oh, I don't feel anything. Don't worry, it's going on. It's working in the background. And sometimes it takes self-awareness, right, to see subtle changes as well. But there's been some pretty big transformation. And I did have like one big one recently with somebody in the Web3 space that asked me for a couple sessions. They had all their the unprocessed emotions that needed to be released. And there were a lot of tears that happened throughout the session. So things were moving. You could tell that she was responding. And her business in Web3 wasn't moving that much. And then it was pretty static. But after a couple months after the session, like that one was changed her life. She left the boyfriend that she didn't want to be with anymore, or that she wasn't really sure about. And that was like the whole aspect where she came to me, was that she wasn't clear about what she wanted to do. And then bam, it was clear what she wanted to do with the boyfriend. Then bam, it was clear what she wanted to do with her career and what she wanted to do with her Web3 business, and switch to another one. And bam, her family also started reacting because she started learning to set boundaries with them, and in that whole process. And that was like one of the magical ones, that you can tell like right away, like, whoa. And sometimes it's like in the year that followed, because it's an avalanche of things, right? You could trigger something January 1st by releasing something, but your life sometimes takes time to change. But that was a big one. I was so happy for her.
I love that. It's always so special when you can see things evolve in another person, that you were a stand for their evolution, when you're like, I believe in your capacity to go beyond this. And then you see them do that and you're like, whoa.
And that's what's magical, right? Because that's where you know that you're not a guru. You're just a witness. That's such a privileged spot, right? Should I shill? I'm pretty proud of this one.
Such a beautiful book. It looks so just perfect.
Any art that I make, or anything that I write, I do infuse with a certain amount of mystical energy. So I have had people tell me, like, if I got the book and I felt something, and I'm like, okay, cool, all right. I don't know why.
Mystery, totally unknown as to why that might be. Ignore the magic that I put into it.
I didn't do nothing.
No, of course not. That would never happen. Tell me a little bit about what that means, because, we hear people in a lot of spaces, and this podcast is really about, giving people the understanding about what that stuff means.
Yes.
And so when you say you infuse your art or your writing, what do you mean by that? Can you get a little bit more specific?
So I think that everything in energy starts with intention. So already, that to begin with, whenever I create something, there's an intention behind it. Now, the intention of writing the book and, having people go through their shadows, releasing things and helping them connect to their potential, great. That's one intention. But the magical, let's call it that, I love that word. The magical intention of certain energy that you can get from it while flipping the book, or having the art in your NFT wallet. What would be the energy that you need the most at the time you're looking at the art? What would be the energy you need the most at the time you're flipping through this page in the book? This is the intention that I set magically. That's the basic one. Those two basic ones, right? But then I also, like in the Cosmic Activation, uses NFTs. On the art, I do have quantum codes. They're kind of like, like programming codes. It's the matrix. So there's literal numbers we've woven in the art. So that's another aspect that I might do. I don't always do it.
Are they Grabavoy numbers, or are they something different?
They're quantum codes. It's in something else entirely.
Cool.
Grabavoy is a little controversial. I don't know why I like him, but I don't know.
It's funny because I actually learned about Grabavoy years ago, and it came back to me, I think when we were living in Mexico, and I was like,
yeah,
let me see what is in this for me. And as I started to unpack it, I went and looked back at it, and there was all of this controversy that I did not know about. And I was like, what? But I guess, in the Matrix, when you have the codes, there are agents of light and agents of darkness.
There's that, plus it also goes back to intention. If you only absorb the controversy behind it, then nothing's going to work, nothing. But if the intention is that, is it the code that works, or is it the intention that you just put in your brain from reading the significance of these numbers? And who cares, really, right? Doesn't matter.
Totally. Like, I think that it's like everything else, right? It's the placebo effect. And I think that's true of everything, including Reiki. So on this podcast, we talk a lot of shit about Reiki because there's so much fluff around it. And there are so many people who don't really have energetic boundaries, who don't have an understanding of other medicines and magics and modalities. Got really like illiterate there. And so, there's a lot about Reiki that can be very fluffy, but I think that it works for one reason, and that's because people believe that it works, right? What's your take on that, being an energy practitioner who practices Reiki?
There's definitely a lot of that, though I have obviously had my share of clients that don't believe in anything, that are super skeptical, and that came out of it like, oh. But then, at which level does the placebo effect take place? I wouldn't know. But although that's true, and there's a lot of fluff in the Reiki world, I find that Reiki is essential when you want to start energy work, because it's the first energy modality that will teach you not to use your own energy. And that's like so major, because most people think that we're using our own energy when we're putting our hands on people, and that's not the thing. You shouldn't do that. That's going to hurt you. Long term, you can't share that. And so, and that's in the Usui tradition. That's what they teach you. Don't share. Use universal energy and have your boundary. You're not sharing anything, and you're not absorbing anything.
Yeah. And I think where I see most Reiki practitioners flip the script or maybe lose the script entirely is that there is this feeling of, I've experienced this, so I'm going to heal it. And you're like, well, actually, you're not.
That's it. And which goes back to, remember when we met, I think, is when we were on a space, or maybe around where we met. And I was saying how I don't like to be called an energy healer, because I don't like the word healer, because I am not a healer, not me who heal. And I'm stressing that point, even though most people know this practice as coming from an energy healer. So I can use the term energy healing, but we're not energy healers, I don't believe. It gives you too much arrogance and too much.
Listen, as somebody who has Jana Stern healer in every single thing on social media, it a little bit makes me hate myself. I used to be on Instagram, Jana Stern healing.
Yeah.
And Twitter didn't have enough letters. And I was like, do I want to be Jana Stern healing?
It's hard. And don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing it. And it is what it is. And I used to also call myself an energy healer before I got into, the meaning of words and the power of words. But yeah, you're not going to change your handle for something.
I could, but it would mean new business cards and new this and new that. And I think at this stage of my growth, having that name out there empowers me. It does the thing about my own sort of imposter syndrome, my own ego. I'm like, this is what I do.
And so it goes back to intention.
I wonder, as a practitioner, how you make sure that you're in alignment with you. I think energy boundaries and cleansing is like a really important thing. I actually wrote a thread about it this morning. I did, because a person who was in a Twitter space, I did like a Ask a Psychic a couple of days ago, which I hadn't done in a while, for a friend of mine. And he had a number of people in his space who are also readers and whatever. And this person who did not want a reading from me, which is fine, then sent me a DM and said, hey, great space. I saw your aura. This is what it looks like. Here's what this means. And I was like, don't recall asking. So I wrote a little thread about energetic hygiene, because immediately afterwards I was like, where is my Palo Santo? Who the fuck asked for that? And how do I stay in alignment? So, I'd love to hear from you.
Oh, it's like that's my dilemma on my names on social media. I'll go from whatever my kids call me to emotional hygiene intuitive or emotional hygiene coach or coach. But yeah, emotional and energetic hygiene is so major. But that's also something that you and I do tell people that we see in a session. I think that's one of the first things that we probably say to people who are not into that world. But like you said, like the Reiki fluff and a lot of people who think that having watched a Udemy 1-hour video on Reiki will enable them to heal people, or they won't know about that. And emotional and energetic hygiene, and mostly energetic hygiene, is super important in the grounding, shielding, and the cleansing. Oh my God, like I can't believe you wrote it. Synchronicities, you wrote a thread on that. I just wrote myself a new ebook on that I wanted to put on my website as a free resources for my clients, because people are like, what do I do?
Quote tweet it so I can share your book.
So funny. I love it. I need to, send me if you have any resources on that, so I can include that also in our spaces and the course. Yeah. I mean, I start generally with the cleansing, grounding, and then shielding. I do it in that order. I don't know if you have a specific order for it, or if it just...
Yeah, a lot of what I was talking about was the idea that there's like kind of infinite ways of connecting to clear out, right? So I sort of listed some of the different things that I do, connecting with the elements. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's a gratitude practice, maybe it's, meditation or sound, something else, in those worlds, in that realm. But really just, connecting with you, tapping in, knowing what's yours, and then everything else. It's important to know that every single connection that we have with people, whether it's passing them on the street,
Yes.
or, diving deep into some unconscious conversation or conscious conversation, I guess, or being intimate, having sex with somebody, or even just, whatever, all of those things have an effect. Sleeping beside somebody, all of those things have an effect on our own aura, our own energy field, right? And so I was just sort of identifying that, and then being like, here's a list of things that you can do. And also, if you're a practitioner, if you receive reading, here's what I would do. And if you're a practitioner, make sure you keep those boundaries.
Oh God, it's so important. I love it. Ooh, I can't wait till I read it. There's so much. There's so infinite. It's like something that we should have been taught in school, like brushing our teeth. It's just as important as brushing our teeth and cleaning our face and cleaning our armpit. Like, you have to do it once or twice a day, minimum. All 3 aspects.
Yeah. Want to talk about those 3 aspects a little?
As I said, I start with cleansing. That'll be like the first thing I do in the morning, right? Where I go back to intention. And let's say I go to the bathroom first thing in the morning. I'll also verbally out loud say, everything that doesn't belong to me leaves me. That's it. That's my first intention, because when I wake up, I need the words out to connect to the intention, right? And then the other thing that I do, and that works really well for me, is the visualizing myself under a waterfall. That's the first thing. I walk around with a waterfall most days. If you tell me energetically, you'd be like, send your way.
I have a girlfriend who lives by a waterfall, and every day she goes, and I'm like, sign me up.
Yeah, seriously. Oh, so magical. So that's one aspect. But I use tuning forks a lot also. So yeah, I'll cleanse myself with the tuning forks themselves. And I just use pure intuition. I wasn't taught to do that. Yeah, I just feel it. So that's one thing. If you don't feel it, then yeah, you can do the waterfall. Is going to work just fine. Then after that, I ground. Grounding to me is either walking barefoot on grass, and that we all know, but it could also be like dancing like crazy in my kitchen with loud music. To me, that's grounding. And that's, again, a practice of self-awareness that we're not taught in school. What works for you? I don't know what works for you. I know what works for me. You can try it, but So yeah, dancing like crazy, that's just magical. And then like one of the other favorite ones is the visualization of, the root chakra or feet, or both, turning into roots and getting to the center of the earth. And that is always being a staple, and I think for a lot of people. And then shielding for me takes different spaces at different times of the day. I have the basic, picturing a energy bubble around me. Fine. I think we all do it. Even the people that are not into this world, I think, do it unconsciously sometimes. But I also have, I don't know if it was you that we were talking about the house guardians or house spirits.
I certainly have spoken about house spirits, but there are house spirits for sure.
Right? And to me, that's part of my shielding practice. I call on them, right?
Yeah, work with them if they're in your home, right?
Exactly. So I'll call on them. You're going to laugh, actually, because here my house guardian looks like Baymax from that movie, Big Hero 6. It's so cute. I just want to hug him. Amazing. Those are different practices that I use. There's definitely more.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that figuring out which ones work for you is a practice. And, the practice is best brought to fruition or best solidified maybe by continuing to practice and being like, oh, that felt good. That didn't feel as good. My day started this way and therefore I'm feeling this way by the middle of the day. I didn't do this and so now I'm exhausted or whatever it is, right? So
Yep, completely.
yeah.
And it can change with age as well, right? I mean, I don't do the same practice I did in my 30s.
Yeah. And I think that comes from knowledge, but I think it also comes from the fact that I think sometimes who we are, the frequency that we're vibrating at a particular time in our lives, when we do the work of finding ourselves for a lifetime, as life goes on, there is this feeling of what worked for me then can't work for me now because I feel so different.
Yeah.
I used to be very, very, very religious about my morning practice, my morning routine of meditation, and it's shifted a lot. And it's fine. Like, it's not great. I'd like to maybe come back to some of it, but you know what I mean?
I love it. And it's symptomatic of the ages that we're going through right now. The age that we're going through, the era that we're going through right now, the changing era. We're feeling it ourselves while we're doing more and more self-awareness work. But I think that everybody is doing more and more, or is being more and more aware that they need more self-awareness work, right? And that I don't know if it's in the stars, but you can feel it. Like, people are wondering more, why wasn't I taught how to know myself more? And to observe that life is not static and changes, so that your routines in the morning might have been one way at some point in your life, but they will change because things change. And so while you embrace changing your routines, it also helps you embrace your life changing.
Things are being released. This always happens. Every time I get on the phone with you, every time I'm face to face with you, even when we're on Twitter Spaces, I'm like, things are just leaving. They're just going. And as they do, I feel the pulley drop all the way down. And then I'm like, oh, that's heavy. And then out it goes. As soon as I'm like, you're right. As we evolved as a species, which is what we're happening, like, and it is in the stars. It's very much in the planet. We are in a massive, as we're filming this, there's 7 planets retrograde. Right. Things are evolving, right? Things are moving forward or seemingly moving backward, but they will. I keep saying, like, enjoy the low period because things are about to really speed up. Time is going to be very different soon. And yeah, I think that the need for us to show up differently and know ourselves differently is going to be exponential. Like, we're going to see massive shifts in the next 10 years of what it means to be a person and to interact with other people. And I think that the medicine that you provide, that I provide, that so many others on this podcast provide, people are hungry for it in a way different way than they were 10 years ago. Like, how long have you been practicing for?
20 years.
Damn, girl.
I'm old.
Well, that's relative. I don't think that's true.
I don't say I'm 44 years old. I say I'm on level 44 because life is getting baby.
44 is quite young, I think, actually. As I stare down the barrel of 40, I'm like, 44 is young. It has to be. But I also think that age is a mindset. I was talking about this the other day. I was always called an old soul. And I think now I'm bringing more playfulness in, and that helps me to actually feel younger than I ever have, particularly being in my late 30s with no children. I'm like, I'm good. One of the other things I really wanted to get into was, your AI art. I know that it is something, yes, that I definitely pushed you because I was like, girl,
you did.
You do this. This is what you do. Do it. Share with me a little bit about what your process is and how this knowledge of alchemy and mysticism kind of makes its way into your AI work.
To me, making art in general, and even before AI, when I was just making digital art, and even when I was a musician, it was always a form of meditation. It's like a way for me to be in my own cloud, to reconnect to me. And when I say me, it's not like Séverine Baron in front of you is just like the essence of me, my energy, my soul, maybe. So I'm not saying that I spend like 2 hours meditating before I do any art, but it is what put me into a sort of trance state. And even with AI, where I can spend hours prompting and it's like becoming this weird, I don't know. And it's always hypnotic and it's always on notions that I'm working on, like whatever shadow, whatever emotions came up that day, whatever is going on in my life. And it might be whimsical too. I mean, one of my collections is, that fake fantasy real estate for light ray alchemists. I just wanted to make funny spaces, but it has to be connected to something mystical. I can't escape it.
It's funny that you say that because I was journaling this morning thinking to myself exactly that. It is impossible for me to do almost anything if there's no magic in it. I just can't. I feel like I've sold myself short on experiencing reality if I don't add that spice in. You know what I mean?
Oh, completely. It has to be. That's why I think that when I cleanse with my tuning fork, I feel like they're wands, There's something fantasy about it. So it just like the whimsy connects you to another dimension, right? Because we're raised that fantasy is not real. But like somebody like you and I are completely connected to that dimension. It is there somewhere. It has to be in another dimension. The laws of physics are just different. So why not Harry Potter style shit?
Definitely. And I think that when you let yourself, again, this is the intention and the placebo thing. When you let yourself see that there is magic in everything, you will find magic in things that do not have magic. You will find meaning to things. You will find depth, layers to things that you're like, nah, that's just this. And I'm like, everything is everything. So nothing is everything. So don't try to be like, oh, those things aren't connected, because let me tell you, they probably are. Because when you go into that consciousness, that like higher vibration or other dimension or whatever it is, when you go into like the science of it, if everything is in the infinite, then it is all connected. Everything is, right? So you can't have a single conversation or an interaction or a moment or watch a movie or see a clip of something or be connected to somebody without something bigger in the everything happening, right?
I mean, completely.
I'm not crazy.
No, are you kidding? It took us like a month to connect. Why is that? There's got to be something. It just wasn't the time. Why today? Maybe both of us are just able to connect to that frequency where we could.
The moon is in Gemini, babe. Our Gemini moon.
It was our Gemini moon. That's it. So how could it not be connected? And what else is connected to that we're not aware of? Oh, come on.
Right. So you really don't know anything, except, on some level, we also know everything, which is also very cool.
Yeah. To know that you can connect to everything.
This has been exceptional. I am so grateful for you. Thank you so much for sharing time and space with me as always. Share with people where they can find you and ways that they can support you in your business.
So there's my main website is severinebaron.com. We're creating another website now for the whole cool, let's call it. It's a word that I have a problem with. So we're trying different words like guild, or things like that. Yeah. We're trying our best to just like put it out there.
Be everywhere and let them, whoever they are, find you wherever they are. I got you.
And you can find me also on TikTok, Séverine Baron. I used to have my Twitter, Séverine Baron, but I got banned. And I'm just going to say they'll find me at Sev the French, but I'm not really, I'm not going to rebuild it. It takes so much work. I'm just going to be there. But you can contact me. Otherwise, there's on my website, there's all the info. And there's all the info to book. There's all the info for Word Diet. Everything. And all my collections.
Incredible. I am so, so grateful for you and just all the things that you bring to my life and the things that you release from my life. I feel like every time I speak to you, I'm like, exhales.
Drink lots of water.
Have my giant bottle that comes with me everywhere that's bigger than my head. Filled it most of the way just so that I wouldn't be thirsty after this. But yeah, you're an exceptional human being. And I'm very, very grateful for our friendship and for you joining me, and grateful for all of our listeners. Thank you all so much.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm grateful for you. Always. Oh my God, I love you.
Come back anytime. I really am so grateful. And thank you to all the listeners. We will see you again for another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff.
Yay!
Take good care of yourself. Thanks for listening to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. You can follow along with us on Instagram at I'm Really Into That Stuff, or on Twitter at That Stuff Pod. And be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. If this episode resonated with you and something that you're really into, share it with someone you love. Sending you strength, peace, love, and light until our next episode.